Hey everybody, how are you doing today? I want, if you can't hear me, you want to be able to hear me, hit the button right in the middle. Hit the play button and you'll actually be able to hear me and follow along. Welcome to episode number 5 of Healthy TV. Let me make sure I find the right, there's the camera. Okay, good. Look at that, the spot on my phone. And yeah, really love to welcome you to Healthy TV, episode number 5, brought to you by the Wellness Group. My name is Dr. John McPhee. I'm a chiropractor out in Canada, and I'm really excited to continue along with these live Facebook shows. And today, what we're going to talk about is, I think, a really important topic, particularly for this time of year. And it's all about how to choose the best quality vegetables for you. There's a I think a real discussion happening around whether like organic is better. Should you be prioritizing organic over local foods? And so what we're really going to dive into this topic. I'm going to give you my criteria for how I choose to purchase my vegetables, which ones I prioritize for organic and which ones I prioritize, or how I go about that process. So while I'm going through this, I'd love to hear your comments. And actually the first question, what I'd like to get some details from you guys is, what's your favorite vegetable in the summertime? So if you're one to go out and shop at the local markets, particularly here in Ottawa, if you have a favorite vegetable that you seek out, that you want to find, just comment that below. Just put your comments below. I'll be certain to add mine whenever we get when I get off here. I have yet to get to the point where I can comment and talk at the same time. I'm a pretty typical male. I have a really hard time doing the multitasking thing. So I'm going to stick to just talking. I do have my colleague, Dr. Hawks, who's going to be posting a few comments as we go and repeating my questions, so that if you join later, then you can find those questions below. So today, what we're talking about is how to choose the healthiest vegetables for you and your family. And as I mentioned, if you can comment below, let me know what your favorite vegetable is. Really, this comes out last night. We actually have just finished presenting the Eat by Design seminar. And one of the crucial criteria around Eat by Design is that there's really 3 criteria that determine all the recommendations that we make in Eat by Design. One is that our body is food that our bodies are best adapted to. Okay. Number 2 is the foods with the highest nutrient density, and number 3 is foods with the lowest toxicity. So those 3 criteria, we won't get into the adaptability or adaptation side of things today. I will say that for another conversation. What I want to focus in on is number 2. That's the foods with the highest nutrient density. And there's some really interesting information I came across in preparation for writing a couple of blogs. I'll link to below. These blogs relate to the topic today, and that's that when we transport our food, that has a huge impact on the actual quality, the nutrient density of that food. And this really raises a question around, for someone like me, I think about this, I'd like to be eating organic food as much as possible, but is it really the most healthy food for me when it's traveling from, say, California or from South America, and it's being shipped thousands of miles over periods of days to weeks? What is the actual impact on the nutrient quality, and would I be better off just buying foods that are produced locally but maybe not organic? And so there's a couple of really interesting research studies that I came across, and one was relating to this concept of food miles. It actually was prepared based on a Canadian community in Waterloo, and so that adds a bit of more credibility for this conversation, since a lot of you are in Canada. And what they found was that the average, when they went around, they chose 58 vegetable. It was actually meat, dairy, vegetables, and fruit. So they chose 58 really common varieties, things that they were particularly looking at, things that you could choose to find locally if you sought it out. And they went around to grocery stores, and then they looked at the actual food miles that went into those products. What they found was that on average, of those 58 products, the food traveled 5,000 kilometers, just under 5,000 kilometers, like 4,997 or something kilometers. So that's massive, right? That food is traveling almost the full width of Canada to get to your plate. And that has a significant impact. Even to give you some specific details there, I think beef was like 5,700 kilometers. Apples and pears were 6,000. Tomatoes was like 4,200 kilometers. So all coming a significant distance, and that raises the question: what's happening to that food, and how does that impact its nutrient density? And so did some further digging, and it turns out that there's really kind of two distinct issues that we need to consider here. One is that the food, in order for it to arrive in a ripened state, it's actually picked unripened. And so even if it's an organic product picked unripened, that can have a huge impact on ultimately on the nutrient quality when you consume it. Foods are actually designed, it makes sense based on evolutionary terms. The food, fruit, or vegetable is actually designed to have an optimum nutrient quantity and quality at the time that it's ripened from the plant. And so the highest density nutrition that you can get from food, from plants, so fruits and vegetables, is when it's picked. So immediately after it's picked, ripened. Okay, so when it's picked unripened, in some cases it's up to 50% loss of nutrients when they looked at things like tomatoes, apples, pears, and a few other vegetables. So you can be not accessing 50% of the nutrient quality simply because it was picked unripened. The second criteria, the thing that we need to consider, is that those foods, in order to I gotta look at my notes here because I just blanked on the second thing, is that the actual length of time. So for every day that the food is goes from being cultivated, it actually degrades. So that starts to, for lack of a better word, it starts to rot, right? And so that actually has a huge impact. So as an example, spinach, if spinach, the average time it takes for spinach in a grocery store from cultivation to plate is about 8 days. And that's, again, a loss of about 50% of some of the really important micronutrients and vitamins that are contained in spinach are lost. So both criteria, whether it's picked unripened, that can reduce nutrient quality, it looks like, up to about 50%. And then also, for the amount of time it takes for it in transport, that can have another ding on the amount of nutrient quality. So those are actually two big considerations for me, because ultimately I want to choose foods with the highest nutrient quality, the highest nutrient density. So this is a really easy problem to solve this time of year. And in a place like Ottawa in particular, and I would say a lot of Canadian cities, we have a ton of outdoor markets and local farmers that are just filling. If you go though, I go to Lansdowne typically on Sundays, and the tables are just overflowing now, late July, early August, overflowing with greens and peppers and tomatoes and like all these vegetables. A lot of ones that I don't even recognize, which is kind of cool. A lot of ones that are native to this area, and so it's kind of a no-brainer, in my opinion, that you want to be able to shop at the local markets. It's actually worth the extra little bit of cost, although I don't find that it's all that much more expensive than shopping in the grocery store, and you're getting significantly higher nutrient quality. Okay, and that's actually, I would argue, regardless whether it's organic or not. So even if it's just conventionally produced, but it's been, if you're buying a tomato that was just picked that morning in a greenhouse and you're consuming it that night, the nutrient quality is going to be much higher than an organic tomato that was picked 2 weeks ago, unripened. Okay, so you need to keep these things in mind. So for this time period, it's kind of a no-brainer, but outside of this time, I think there's some criteria that I particularly subscribe to, and I think it's really valuable to kind of consider these steps. So I have a 5-step process. These are kind of like a hierarchy for me in terms of how I choose to buy my vegetables and fruit. So number 1, the top of the hierarchy, is both local and organic, preferably heirloom variety, meaning that it's kind of ancient stock seeds. So that would be top of the hierarchy. That's, you're going to no question you're going to have the highest nutrient quality in foods that are both local and organic. Just below that would be local, outdoor, and those, a lot of farmers, they can't afford the actual regulatory burdens to actually be labeled organic, because it's quite a pricey process. So if you actually speak to the vendors, they often will tell you, look, we're actually technically organic in the sense that we don't use any herbicides or pesticides. We just can't afford to put that sticker on our food. So have a conversation. I know all the farmers that I buy from, and some of them I consider good friends. So good, they're all very approachable. Ask them the questions, kind of in a non-judgmental way. So number one, local and organic. Number two, just down the hierarchy, would be local, kind of non-organic, but perhaps pesticide, herbicide free. Number three would be local and greenhouse. So typically greenhouse are, they actually don't have to rely a ton on herbicides, pesticides, and their foods they can produce very efficiently. And so I like to support those, particularly in the winters or in the fall and the spring, when those greenhouses are pumping out foods that otherwise you can't get locally. Number four would be local conventional. So this would be, several of the markets have farmers who just, they farm in a conventional way. It might just be a small scale. They use their herbicides, pesticides. However, the fact that they're picked that day or the day before, I would rank that over number five, which is imported organic. I would put that at the bottom of the list for me personally. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because I'm sure there's things I'm omitting or not thinking through. So please give your comments below if you would consider a different hierarchy. Like I said, this time of year, it's pretty straightforward because we have such abundance at our local markets. And when we get into the winter and spring in particular, then I find this hierarchy actually really helps. So what I'll do actually, I'm just running out to the airport. I'm on my way for a week's holiday. But when I get to the airport, I'm going to I'll put all this information in the comments below. I'll actually give you my list in there, and I'll qualify it with a bit more information. I'll link to some of those research articles that I talked about. And in fact, you know what I'll do? I'll just link to the blogs that I wrote, and that'll have all the information in there. That's probably the best. That's the easiest way to do it. So if you just, in about 30 minutes, go down, you'll see in the comments, and I'll have put the links to the blogs. Check those out. Any questions or further comments, put below, send me an email. Always love to hear what you guys think of the show. Next week, I will be trying to stick on time, or if I'm hopefully on time. I'm going to actually be in Scotland. I'm going over for the World Pipe Band Championships. Yes, I do play bagpipes, and it's a little bit strange, kind of niche, but I'll be amongst thousands of peers over there competing for the title of World's Best Pipe Band, which is kind of cool. And so I'll be I'll actually be hosting Healthy TV Live from there. And the topic I decided, I thought, since I'll be traveling, I thought I'd go through some of the steps that I take personally to stay on track with my Life by Design when I'm traveling. So what do I do when it comes to eating? So how do I stick to Eat by Design when I'm traveling? How do I exercise? So what's my fitness regime whenever I'm traveling? How do I manage the sleep and also with time change? So I'm going to really put some thought into some of the key steps that I apply that I found to be very successful. I've done a lot of traveling in my life, and some very successfully in terms of my health, and others not so successfully, so I've learned along the way. So I'll share those with you next week. And yeah, really, if you have any other questions relating to that topic, put it below. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and I would look forward to chatting with you guys next week, same time, same place. Have a good day.